The call landed the second her pen touched paper. One sentence, and the floor shifted. Chicago, April 2025. Morning light climbed the glass and spread across a long conference table. Air vents purred. Chairs whispered on carpet. Amelia Price, 32, adjusted her badge, squared the contract, and nodded at her assistant to cue the projector. Her phone trembled once. She stepped a pace aside and answered. "Yes." Tyler's voice came flat, efficient. "I already sold the condo. I'm moving in with Nicole." Silence. 3 measured breaths. No protest. No plea. She lowered the phone, glanced at the window's mirrored skyline, then slipped the device into her blazer. The pen paused mid-stroke. The contract page held its breath. On the desk, a printed agenda slid and tapped the floor. Small, clean, definite. 5 minutes, she told her assistant. A nod, not a wobble. She crossed to the glass and stood tall, shoulders set, chin lifted like a mark on stage lights. Across the screen of her silenced phone, a message flared and dimmed. Sale confirmation. Pending deed transfer. Another banner blinked, then vanished beneath the dark. "Ma'am, do you need water?" the hotel tech asked, coil of cable in his hands. "I'm good," she said. "Finish audio, please." Her assistant hovered. "Are you okay?" Amelia's gaze stayed steady. "Open the room. I'll be in at 10. She didn't raise her voice. She raised the stakes. The room settled into business rhythm. Microphones popped. The projector exhaled. A muted chime signaled the client team arriving down the hall. A door latched. The air changed. Noses lifted to the smell of new coffee. Amelia buttoned her blazer, smoothed a sleeve, and pressed 2 fingers to the bridge of her nose as if aligning a lens. Tyler called again. The screen lit, then went dark beneath her thumb. She adjusted the stack of folders by color. She reset 2 pens so their clips faced north. She reclaimed the fallen agenda, squared its corners, and returned it to the pile. "Ms. Price?" The client lead peeked in, bright smile, careful eyes. 2 minutes, she said, gentle and crisp. "We're ready." The skyline kept its cool blue. The contract waited. From the corridor, laughter lifted and faded. She checked the mic, heard her voice, lower than usual, but even, a final nod to the team. Then the door swung wider, and she moved. She pocketed the phone deeper, as if locking a drawer no one else could open. Her posture lengthened. Before the camera of anyone following this channel, don't miss what happens next. Subscribe to stay with our unfolding family revenge stories. This wasn't the first red flag. It was simply the last excuse she would ever need. The first crack wasn't loud. It was a calendar ping at 11:47 p.m. Strategy. Off-site. No location, no team. Chicago, 3 months before the call. Snow salted the curb. The lobby's brass rails threw back warm light. Amelia swiped in, suitcase rolling, blazer still creased from the red-eye. The concierge raised 2 fingers in greeting, then lowered his voice. "Your husband brought a guest up earlier." That week, Tyler changed the door code and laughed it off as security. The next, a dinner receipt printed "Table for 2" at a River North steakhouse while her slides advanced on a client screen 2 miles away. His shirts carried a sharp perfume that didn't live in their bathroom. A long blonde hair curved across the passenger seat, glinting in sun. Laptop lids snapped shut when she entered. A muted app badge winked red from his dock. Lauren noticed before anyone else. "He's generous on Instagram," she said, passing Amelia a binder at the elevator, "and invisible when your flights land." The barista downstairs lifted a milk pitcher and asked, "Your guy's been coming late. Same oat cap, not alone." The garage manager scanned a log, paused, and tapped a column. After-hours entries. Weekends. Elevators keyed to the service corridor. Amelia didn't argue. She filed. Housings for evidence appeared, clear sleeves, labeled spines, a gray folder with a locking tab. Text alerts stacked in tidy rungs, small repeated charges split across the same day. Statements arrived with clusters of River North charges, line after line. A bank envelope slid halfway into a kitchen drawer, its glue still damp. He tried explanations, quick and flat. Client's niece, helping with research. Separate receipts keep expenses clean. Don't wait up. Off-site goes late. She nodded, set the receipts under acrylic, dated the sticky flags, and kept moving. Motifs multiplied. 2 wine stems drying on the rack when only 1 dinner was plated. A silk handkerchief, floral, in the pocket of his raincoat. A selfie ghosted on the elevator doors. Tyler's jawline, a pale blur at his shoulder. At his parents' table, he dodged questions about spring renovations and refilled glasses. An old college friend clapped him on the back at a bar, joked about an intern, and stalled when Amelia stepped out of the restroom. The data tightened its rhythm. Off-site entries synced with service lift swipes to an upper floor. A crumpled work order read, "Cleaning lake condo, stamped midweek." A title company robocall left a brief voicemail. Deed inquiry, initiated. She didn't chase the smoke. She mapped the wind. Night framed the condo in hard blue. She photographed receipts on a cutting board under the pendant lamp. She slid screenshots into dated folders and mirrored the drive. The gray file thickened, then clicked shut beneath a small key. No speeches, no scenes, just sequence. In the hallway, the elevator chimed twice. Across the city, a river darkened past neon and stone. Amelia pulled the living room curtains straight, set the phone face down, and reset the doormat with her heel. Somewhere, Tyler laughed over glassware. Upstairs, a neighbor's TV rose and fell. Viewers who live for family revenge stories would recognize the picture sharpening, breadcrumbs aligning on tile. Tomorrow, observation would become plan. She turned off the kitchen light. The condo went quiet. She didn't rehearse arguments. She rehearsed signatures. Chicago, 4 weeks before the call. The city wore salt and slate. Her calendar wore pins. Amelia arrived at a brick building and rode the elevator to 9. Chloe Hart, family and property, opened a glass door, handed a clipboard, and gestured to a chair. They spoke in verbs, not feelings. Reefy. Title. Notice. Affidavit. Amelia produced a gray folder. Chloe slid colored flags onto pages and tapped lines with a lacquered pen. The lender's packet arrived by courier. The notary date-stamped every page. The copier hummed until the stack leveled. At a windowed desk, Chloe prepared a post-nuptial addendum and an affidavit of separate property. A title search printed with clean margins. No liens. Owner of record to be updated. Restrictive notice to flag any transfer attempts. Chloe's nail pressed the signature tabs. Amelia signed the first line, then the next, steady as a metronome. She didn't post. She filed. A P.O. box went active. A new checking account opened with a quiet click and an envelope of temporary checks. Payroll redirected. Consulting retainers rerouted. Alerts set to ping for any activity on the joint accounts. Authorized user privileges reviewed, then deleted. At home, the condo turned into a small data shop. Receipts from River North restaurants slid into clear sleeves. Security logs from the garage printed with timestamps, highlighted in yellow. Elevator keycard reports stacked by week. She exported screenshots of the deed inquiry initiated banners and saved them with metadata visible. The gray folder thickened. A keyed strap cinched it shut. Her phone stopped being a hub and became a tool. Apple ID separated. 2-factor codes moved to an authenticator app. Family sharing off. Find my unlinked. She rotated the Wi-Fi password, then printed the router access log and dropped it into the digital tab. Insurance caught up with the plan. She updated the homeowner's policy, beneficiaries corrected. She purchased an owner's title policy and filed a restrictive notice with the title company. A stamped confirmation slid back across a counter at noon, red seal winking. Lauren received a set of keys, a duplicate drive, and a sealed envelope labeled "If Needed." The valise by the door slimmed to essentials: passport, cards, a thin USB wrapped in tape. A contact list sat under a magnet. Chloe, CPA, building manager, concierge desk. Communications went tonal neutral. Received. Will review. Schedule noted. Emails to banks carried subject lines with dates, Chloe on CC. Texts to Tyler answered logistics and nothing else. No confrontation, only documentation. The net wasn't loud. It was legal. On a Tuesday, Chloe filed a fraud alert with the bureaus and initiated a title update. The clerk stamped and slid the notice to an outbox. A red edge flashed, then stilled. That evening, Amelia labeled new binders: finance, property, third party, digital, and mirrored everything to an encrypted cloud. She placed the gray folder in the safe, turned the wheel once, twice, and tugged to confirm. Across the city, a river ran black under frost. She set 2 pens parallel, closed her laptop, and checked the door chain. When Tyler reached for the lever, the mechanism would already be set. For viewers who follow family revenge stories, this wasn't spectacle. It was setup. He thought the lever would move for him. It clicked and locked. Chicago, 1 weekend after the call. The loop steamed with espresso. Tyler chose a table by the window and set a glossy packet between 2 cups. "Deed flips by noon," he promised the buyer, knuckles drumming a confident metronome. Across the street, Amelia walked through the title company's glass doors with a gray folder under her arm. Ms. Patel greeted her, scanned the barcode on a restrictive notice, and opened a record already flagged from last week's filings. Owner of record, Amelia Price. Owner's title policy, active. Transfer attempts, hold required. 2 scenes advanced in lockstep. At the cafe, the buyer scribbled initials across escrow instructions while Tyler refreshed email and grinned into the foam. At the title desk, Mrs. Patel pressed 1 key. The system pulsed red, then generated a message. Phones vibrated at once. Subject: escrow freeze notice. CC: buyer's agent, Tyler Hale. The iPad in the broker's hands flashed a banner. Transfer requires sole owner consent, denied. A rectangular stamp fell on the paper stack behind Ms. Patel. On hold. The ink bloomed and steadied. The buyer frowned. "You said clean title." "Restrictive notice on file," Ms. Patel said over the line. "Sole owner of record, Amelia Price. Compliance is triggered." "That can't be right," Tyler snapped, color rising. "It's recorded," Ms. Patel replied, and mirrored. Amelia didn't linger. She accepted Chloe's confirmation, returned the pen to the lobby tray, and nodded a quiet thanks. The door side shut behind her. Tyler reached for his card. The terminal beeped and shook its head. Declined. Tyler swallowed, lips pressed thin. Bank flags from the joint account tripped after the attempted deposit. The buyer slid back the earnest check. "We'll revisit when you actually have authority." He didn't lose the home. He lost the narrative. Escrow sent a suspension letter within minutes, noting potential breach if pressure continued. The concierge at the condo replied to Chloe's request with a signed incident log, times and elevator trips matching names Tyler would prefer not to explain. Alerts stacked like hail across Tyler's screen. Breach risk advisory. Fraud review opened. Title response required. His phone lit again. Amelia, at last. "Unlock this," he said, voice tight. "Talk to title," she said, tone level. "And counsel." The line cut. She placed the phone back in her jacket and stepped into an elevator whose walls reflected a woman aligned to her own horizon. Steam hissed. A spoon clinked. A bus braked outside and sprayed the curb. Tyler stood over a puddle of coffee bleeding across a photocopied contract, the brown edge licking at his noon promise. He dabbed at it with napkins that only smeared the stain wider. Amelia crossed the lobby with the gray folder locked and the property label facing outward. The security guard nodded. The city's rain hushed to a steady beat that sounded almost like a clock. By dinner, questions were moving faster than explanations. Family threads lit up. What happened to the sale? Is Amelia blocking you? A college friend texted, "Partners are asking." The circle that once cheered his swagger closed like a camera iris. For viewers who live for family revenge stories, this wasn't fireworks. It was framing. and the frame was closing. Messages popped like corn in the family thread. In all that tapping, he lost the last person willing to take his side. That evening, the Hale dining room felt crowded by silence. Knives rang once, then paused. Tyler said, "Escrow glitch, title mix-up, it'll clear." His mother's fork stayed midair. "You said it would close by noon." His father leaned back. "Title in whose name exactly?" Tyler blinked. "It's complicated." His sister slid her phone across the table. A screenshot of the iPad banner from the cafe. Transfer requires sole owner consent, denied. "Maybe it's not complicated," she said. "Maybe she just read the law." Nicole checked her reflection in the black of a window. Her ringtone cut through the room, thin and sharp. "You told me clean title," she said into the mic. "What does sole owner mean?" Tyler lowered his voice. "Procedural. Tomorrow." Nicole slipped her purse strap over her shoulder and stood. No one stopped her. The front door sighed, and the hallway swallowed her heels. Across town, Amelia replied to Chloe with one line, "Received." Lauren forwarded the concierge's signed log. No post, no victory lap. At the office next morning, the break room ran on rumor. Escrow on ice. Broker furious. Wasn't he bragging yesterday? By the machines, 2 associates murmured. Is Nicole tied to this? HR says legal wants a timeline. Tyler poured coffee he didn't drink. On his wrist, a banner flashed while his mother texted a good luck sun emoji. Breach risk advisory. He opened the family chat and wrote, "It's a misunderstanding." His father answered, "Meet your attorney tomorrow. Not a friend of a friend." A second bubble arrived from his mother. "Call Amelia. Ask for a time with her and her counsel." The nouns reversed the air in his lungs. He thumbed a defense into a social post. Someone replied, "Show document." Another, "Screenshots say otherwise." The thread closed on him like a fist. He didn't just lose a condo. He lost the crowd. And when the crowd steps back, even echo sounds like judgment. Faces that once nodded along began to harden, and doors began to hush shut everywhere. A courier dropped a title envelope at dinner, read on hold, cutting through linen like a flare. Tyler's father turned it over twice. "You told us it was done." Tyler pushed a sentence that wouldn't stand. The doorbell rang again. HR scheduled a check-in. Legal asked for clarity. His college friend called from the street. "Partners want to know why the deal fell apart." Family revenge stories don't always swing with shouting. Sometimes the quiet is the loudest part. On Tyler's screen, a calendar invite arrived. Status conference, property funds. Location, room 4B. Appearance, in person. He packed arguments. She brought documents. Chicago, civil court, room 4B. Late morning, end of April. Wood, dark as coffee. A red light blinked on the recorder. The clock hummed. Tyler Hale arrived with Mr. Lang, jaw tight, suit sharper than his footing. Amelia Price walked in with Chloe Hart, gray folder labeled property turned outward. In the hallway, Tyler tried first. "Can we talk?" Chloe answered without heat. "Through counsel." Amelia adjusted the tab order and kept moving. The clerk called, "Hale v. Price, Property and Funds, Status Conference." Benches creaked. Nicole slid into the last row and stared at her hands. Tyler's parents occupied the center like witnesses carved from oak. Judge Ramirez took the bench. "Address the court, not each other. Keep it concise." Mr. Lang rose. "Community interest exists. Title confusion at the company created an escrow freeze that harms my client." He spread empty palms like proof. "We request immediate relief to proceed." The judge peered over glasses. Standing. Recorded owner. "Show me, not tell me." Chloe stood. "Exhibit A, Your Honor. Refinance deed. Sole owner. Ms. Price." A stamped copy landed on the rail. "Exhibit B, owner's title policy, active. Exhibit C, Restrictive notice recorded with the title company. Exhibit D, escrow freeze notice, CC'd to Mr. Hale and buyer's agent. Exhibit E, concierge and elevator logs, times matching attempted transfer activity. Ms. Price, the judge said, you claim sole ownership? Yes, Your Honor. Recorded on April 14th. Mr. Hale, any recorded instrument contradicting? Mr. Lang's file answered with silence. Discovery may reveal. You'll have discovery, Judge Ramirez said. Today, status and restraint. Chloe slid color tabs one by one. Red, blue, yellow, green. Amelia's posture never wavered. Tyler tapped a rhythm that betrayed him. Sweat trembled at his hairline. Nicole lowered her gaze until her reflection disappeared in the black of her screen. A stamp met paper. Filed. Orders, the judge said. Status quo on the residence. No transfer, encumbrance, or occupancy change without further court approval. Temporary restraining order on unusual withdrawals from joint accounts. Mr. Hale may retrieve personal effects on listed dates with concierge verification. Counsel will meet and confer regarding preliminary disclosures within 7 days. Fees reserved. Sanctions open if games continue. Mr. Lang tried a last chord. My client needs access for the broker. The order governs, the judge replied. If you violate it, you'll explain it. A single rap of the gavel cut the room. Shoes scuffed. The recorder light went dark. In the corridor, Tyler's mother spoke first, barely above a whisper. We'll discuss this. Properly. 2 co-workers whooped a friendly look yesterday, now read their phones instead. HR pinged his inbox. Legal pinged next. Tyler lifted his phone. Nicole? Voicemail. Chloe pressed the elevator button. Amelia slipped the folder into her tote and nodded. No victory pose, just process. For audiences who follow family revenge stories, the detail mattered. She didn't raise emotion, she raised exhibits. An internal email landed on Tyler's screen before the doors closed. Review of conduct, client assurances, urgent. Conference with partners, 3 p.m. The order froze more than a deed. It froze his momentum. Outside, spring rain stitched lines across Dearborn. Tyler stood still, and the city moved past him without waiting back. The order didn't just freeze a deed, it froze his calendar. The week after Room 4B, Chicago turned the color of wet slate. Tyler walked into Partners' conference room with a trimmed deck and no proof. Questions landed in neat rows. Why was escrow frozen? Where is the recorded ownership in your favor? What compliance steps did you ignore? He pointed at process. They pointed at documents. HR waited outside. Legal asked for a timeline with sources, not stories. Clients moved first. One paused a renewal. Another slid a project to next quarter. KPI dashboards bled red blocks. The assistant who used to book client drinks removed 3 dinners with an efficient click. Banks followed the court. A fraud flag stopped a transfer. A card declined. A call center voice recited policy. Fees stacked. The apartment demanded a higher deposit after a credit alert ticked his file. A messenger delivered an envelope of payment failed notices to the front desk. Nicole returned a key on a ribbon and 3 words in the doorway. I don't do mess. By evening, her photos changed shape. Solo frames, blank captions. His messages settled under Scene 10:42 p.m. At dinner with his parents, silence took head of the table. His father said, real attorney, real documents. His mother refilled water and didn't add advice. The meal tasted like waiting. Downstairs, the concierge ticked boxes on an access sheet as Tyler retrieved 2 sealed cartons under the court's protocol. A vest lay creased inside. A copy of a contract wore a coffee-tied line. His watch buzzed, payment failed, and buzzed again. The city noticed the subtraction. The barista counted out coins across the saucer. The garage guard wrote, badge usage declining. 2 associates near the elevator whispered, he used to strut. Now he waits. He opened his laptop on a table and scrolled pages titled, "How to Dispute a Freeze." The screen brightened his face. The room stayed small. Calls from Dad rippled the phone and rolled off unanswered. Fall isn't a moment. It's a schedule. An internal memo placed him on administrative leave pending review. Title sent a reminder of potential liability for transfers. Escrow forwarded a letter to counsel, tone clipped, numbers precise. Partners set a disciplinary meeting. Rain beat the windows in unbroken tempo. The elevator in his building took longer to arrive. A payment alarm chirped in the empty kitchen. On the table, court orders overlapped his business cards, the logo glossy and unused. He drew the blinds, saw his reflection bend, and let the blinds fall back into place. For viewers who track family revenge stories, the contrast was the point. While her exhibit stood, his scaffolding thinned to air. While his calendar stalled, hers began to breathe. Early summer on the lakefront, a wide window opened to bright water and clean air. Amelia peeled old nails from the wall, rolled a fresh coat across one accent strip, and pinned a clean mood board. Fonts, colors, timelines. The gray folder went to the safe, the dial turned, the handle tested. On the table, a planner lay beside her laptop, dashboard steady with intact invoices and upcoming calls. Lakefront Strategies launched with a one-page site, a narrow logo, and a headshot that looked like daylight. She updated the email signature, Amelia Price Principal, and cued a note to her network, availability, specialties, first client cap, replies stacked. At a quiet cafe, a founder slid over a scope. Scope approved. Amelia tapped the file. Start Monday. And they shook on it. A banner blinked. SOW signed.pdf. The noise in her chest loosened. The room did not need to hear it. Lauren booked a short shoot, delivered selects, polished a case study template. Chloe dialed through red lines on a master services agreement and nodded at the indemnity clause. The accountant opened the LLC account, set quarterly reminders, and left a neatly typed checklist clipped with a blue tab. Her days took shape. Dawn runs traced the lake, shoes thudding soft against the path. Coffee steamed back home. A calendar slot opened. A checklist cleared. Midday meant a desk at a co-working space. Afternoon, a client check-in, screen shares, milestones, a short list of next steps. Evenings, a small workshop for women founders filled the building's community room. A participant watched her sketch a funnel. "I thought growth needed permission." "It needs process," she said, and let the marker rest. On a shelf, a new picture frame held the skyline with a sticky note tucked behind glass. Filed, focused. Her watch pulsed once. Invoice paid. The only chime she needed. She didn't start over, she started correctly. Newsletters introduced her to new circles. A neighborhood forum invited her to a panel. A subject line read, "Referral, urgent." Comments arrived from friends who had nothing to sell. "Proud of you. Keep going." The ground under her work felt level, as if a floor had been poured while no one watched. Keystrokes found their tempo. Email bells rang light, not frantic. With the window open, Lake Michigan stitched hush into the room. If you follow family revenge stories, this is the arc where quiet competence does the talking. Subscribe to stay with her next moves. Sunset threw rose across the glass. Amelia closed the laptop, squared the pens, and stacked the week's folders. Next month's grid waited, already full. Slow, certain, hers. Growth would prove what revenge never had to say out loud. Months later, the proof wasn't loud. It was visible. Summer rolled to fall, then tightened into early winter. Amelia's co-working office shifted to a larger corner, her calendar stacked clean blocks. A whiteboard read Q4 campaigns. Clips from her workshop circulated in a community newsletter, a panel photo pinned to a local event page. Panel applause lived inside a photo. Her watch tapped, invoice paid. An email subject glowed. "We were sent by Mira, referral." Saturdays showed the lake trail, Sundays, dinner with the women founders. Easy laughter, next dates confirmed. Across the same city, Tyler's profile switched to open to work. His old address bounced messages. A company notice marked administrative leave turned termination, line dated and spare. A landlord's reminder stuck to his door about an increased deposit. His card flashed. Payment failed. A barista counted singles into his saucer. Friends tagged him less. Co-workers rerouted around him. The garage guard wrote, "Badge usage declining." 2 frames, parallel. Amelia signed a new SOW, shook once, and typed "Welcome aboard" as the banner logged SOW final.pdf. Tyler carried 2 boxes to the condo's front desk. The concierge checked the access protocol, ticked a square, and handed him a visitor badge expiring 4:00 p.m. Time didn't fix the story. It clarified it. On her desk, the gray folder rested in the safe. Above, only a planner and laptop remained. On his table, business cards hid under court orders. His watch pulsed an overdue alert. Keyboard clicks and lake hush filled her room in warm light. In his hall, an elevator crawled. Rain tapped iron, and the fluorescent stayed cold. They lived one city, 2 outcomes. Endings pretend to be endings. Sometimes they're just doors. Months later, the city stayed the same. Their paths didn't. Amelia set a small mic on a lectern, advanced a slide, and checked the room's light. Stage lights warmed her careful hands. The mood board replaced any scrapbook. The signing pen replaced pleading. A red filed stamp replaced arguments. Her watch tapped once, invoice paid, and fell quiet again. Across town, an envelope with "on hold" bled through its own window. Tyler's card flashed "payment failed." His badge pinged fewer doors. Rain stitched the stairwell rails. The elevator took its time. She closed the safe on the gray folder, spun the dial, and opened the curtains to lake color. Within the hour, she would outline a talk about process, not drama, how control lives in signatures, timelines, and tabs, not noise. She straightened the cables, breathed once, and let the room settle. He stacked papers under a cold lamp, court orders, notices, a schedule with empty squares. A call from Dad vibrated the counter and crawled away unanswered. He watched his reflection warp in the dark glass and turned from it. The narrator doesn't need to guess at feelings. The pictures are legible. One life expanded, one narrowed. Justice arrived in procedures that held, not in speeches that burned. Revenge never shouted. Rebuilding did. He thought he'd written the ending to her life. In truth, he'd only turned the first page of her beginning. If this quiet rise reflects why you follow family revenge stories, subscribe to stay with the next ascent, where the work is calm, the stakes are real, and the doors keep opening.